Oh, ho, ho, the wine mojo. Splash UK, Splash UK. Ready. Okay, so let's go. Fred, are you ready? Do you want to say hi to the crowd?
I already did. Well, they can hear me now. So, hi everybody. Thanks for joining again.
Good. So today we have a different tasting again. It's a different taste at home with Oscar this time. We have had the Quevedo tonies. I think that was the very first we did. On the day after, we did the Ruby tasting. This was last year. We have done a vertical of Creators. We have done blend your own 20-year-old tonic. And today we are going to taste the components of our 2019 vintage port. So you got in total 5 bottles, and of those 5 bottles, 4 are components of what is in the 5th bottle. And in this sheet, I have the formula. So guess what? For the next hour, you guys are going to try to get to the formula, or maybe even better, make your own blend and tell us what you like the most. That's the goal of all this. As I always do, let me just briefly introduce the family and tell you that my sister Claudia is the lady behind the port production. She has been making the ports in the family for 22 years. She's my elder sister. She's much more mature and complex than me. I'm the easygoing guy that likes to be in front of the camera. One day, I think we're gonna get Claudia on the camera. Don't you think, Fred?
I think she will be forced. We'll tie her up and she'll be in front of you.
It's not yet today, though. And so our family has been making ports and wine for over 100 years, but only in the last 30 years we start bottling our own ports. In 1 year and a half ago, about that, we bought a tasting room, actually an old warehouse in the city of Vila Nova de Gaia, just across from the Douro River in Porto. And since then, we have been open to the public, so people can discover more of our ports and enjoy, get to know the brand for those that don't know it yet, and the many people that don't know about us. And we decided that one of the tastes at home with Oscar should be in that place, in our tasting room. And in our tasting room, we have 2 tonnages, which are big oak casks, beans, and this is one of those. So it has been not used for, I think, over 7 or 8 years, and we kind of converted to a photo booth area so people can take a photo inside of the tunnel. And guess what? The wood is kind of helping us with the sound. So I hope that you guys can hear everything I do in better conditions. I still remember the first taste at home we did, Fred, that we were down in the cellar and there was a bit of echo. And you guys were patient, and in the end, I think it worked out well. But this time the sound is in good. So what I think you will need to take the most of this tasting are the following things. The 5 bottles of port, of course. Without those, there's no fun. Get 5, 6, maybe even 7 glasses. And something very important, a measure for to make the blend, and you can get to the percentages, the volume that you want to have in your own blend. The percentages that my sister decided are going to be revealed at the very end, so be a bit patient. We won't take you more than 1 hour for this tasting, but I think it's going to be fun to know that you guys keep sharing your formulas on the chat section. Fred is moderating it, and if you have any questions, just write it there, and Fred is going to share it with me. So for now, my suggestion is that we do, and I don't think we have any questions so far, Fred, do we?
Just welcome.
My suggestion is that we do a brief presentation of what 2019 year was for the vines, for the Douro, and then we'll start tasting some port. We are here for that. 2019 was a dry year, another dry year in the Douro. And the rainfall levels were always behind, below, under the average. And you know that the Douro is a dry area where irrigation is now allowed, but that's still a huge percentage of vineyards that don't have irrigation setup. I would risk to say that more than 90% have no irrigation. So, you know, there's a lot of a lot of necessity of rain to control the quality of the grapes. In, in the extreme case that we have no rain, we are going to end up with raisiny grapes. The vine is going to be very stressed and won't be able to produce high quality grapes. In 2019, we were going into the direction of really low level of rain. And something changed the very end, some days before the end of before the beginning of the harvest. We had one of those late summer days of rain, in which the vines were released and they could finish the ripeness, and we end up with an excellent result. I think that we will see an interesting difference between the ports that are located at lower altitude and at higher altitude. And that's going to be also, we have different vineyards, different quintas where our components are coming from. And I guess that we will understand that altitude difference and what it means in terms of flavors and aromas, and what is the winemaker, in our case, my sister, looking for when she blends and using the percentages that she used. You know that usually we have the chance of tasting a lot of the vintage ports that are going to be released or were released um, 2 years after the harvest. But because of the COVID, most of the tastings were postponed. And I didn't have the chance of tasting many vintage ports from 2019. So here I will give you more of what's my view of our ports, what I tasted during the fermentation 2 years ago, and what we have been tasting until we decided to the components and the percentages for the final blend. Ready?
Question.
Oh, we have two questions.
Somebody's asking, how does it compare in terms of drought and dry season compared to 2003 and 2017 that were quite renowned for being dry? And another question is about global warming. How does it affect viticulture and vegetation?
2003 was a year that we had a big heat wave that lasted for several days, and was a year in which the vines were producing a lot of quantity. In 2019, the vines, since the flowering season, which happens in May, they were not as ready to produce that many grapes. So in 2019, in my opinion, the vine was able to handle better this period of low rain and very low humidity in the soil, better than in 2003. We could see that in 2003 to some moment towards the end of August, the acidity, which our indicator for freshness of the musts and the longevity for the ports, start going down quite fast. While in 2019, the vine was also going fast, the acidity, but at a lower depth. And the rain that finally releases the vine from that extreme water stress came on time to still balance the ports. Global warming. Well, global warming is something that it's here. There's no doubt that it's here. we can see that, if I'm not wrong, only 1 year out of the last 10, the average temperatures were below the 1930 to 1970 average. 1930, I think it's the beginning when we have detailed records of temperatures in the Douro. And 1970 is trying to avoid as much as possible the last years of, where the global warming was probably already more intense and could change the average upwards. So that's the period that we use in the Douro to compare with the current year or the previous years. And if I'm not wrong, in the last decade, only in 1 year we had temperatures below that period of the 20th century. So what can we do different? Well, we are lucky in the Douro that this is not just flat land. The temperatures are not equal throughout the region. It makes a big difference if you are located at lower altitude, close to the river, or if you are on the top of the hill. For those that have been here, I mean, there is a dramatic. Dramatic is probably 3, 4 Celsius degrees Celsius in average temperature, especially in the summertime, which is when the vine is finalizing the ripeness. So in our case, what we have been doing is to use more grapes from vineyards located at higher altitude. Instead of being between the 100 to 300 meters range of altitude, we go more towards the 300 to 500. And I will explain that better when I reveal what we have in the blend. I don't want to give too much information regarding the components, so you get to think more while you're tasting the ports. But it is, I think that's one of the solutions, is to first go higher in altitude. Second, use irrigation in moderation. There's definitely an increase in quality when we do some irrigation. We irrigate the vines 4 or even up to 6 weeks before the beginning of the harvest. Third option, go to varieties that can battle handle high temperatures and drought. And Tinto Cão is probably a great example of that. While Tinta Barroca, which is a variety that produces a lot of concentrates, a lot of sugar, but dehydrates very quickly, is probably a suggestion of a variety that we should reduce, especially in lower altitudes. So more Tinto Cão, less Barroca. And so we have to adjust those percentages of varieties. And we have seen also a lot of Alicante Boucher being used even by the biggest houses. So it's a variety that has been not really has been in the Douro for many years, especially in our area of the São João da Pesqueira, towards the Torto Valley and so on. But has not been people haven't been that much maybe revealing it on the placement tech sheets. And we see it more because it handles well also drought and gives you a concentration and acidity at the same time. Are you ready? So glass in one hand, and component number 1 to go into our well, first thing that we should probably do is to use a white background so we can clearly see the color of this port. And as the vintage porter you're tasting today, they are all from 2019. They are all going to be very dark in color, opaque, but there could be some variations in terms of more purplish or dark reddish. So that's the fun part that you can try to figure it out today. So yeah, here we have a dark color, a bit more towards what purplish. Some of a floral and red fruit notes. It's relatively fresh. It's not really that overripe in my opinion. It's a young port, so it should have, it's a young vintage port. It should have a lot of tannins, and it does have, but it also has some fattiness behind, which gives you the impression of a lot of volume and texture. And it maintains that freshness and that floral note as you sip. It's I see this as a port to bring some freshness and do that play a bit on the floral side still, but still the fruit notes and bring us also some tannins on a fresher way. Any comment? Here.
Yeah, so we have the Wine Mojo saying that this number one is definitively purple. Maybe we can mention that blending is not always logic. So it's not because this is fresh that when you blend it, it will remain or bring freshness to the blends. Some blends are not necessarily complementary.
That's
When
a
you
very,
have to try a lot of them.
that's a very good point, Fred. It is like that. It's not like 1 plus 1 is 2, not even 3. You don't really know the results until you test. Sometimes it works very well. Sometimes 1 plus 1 is 0. It doesn't really work. Doesn't really match. It's you need to train yourself to understand what each component can bring to the final blend. But you also need to experiment. And sometimes you go wrong many times until you really get to something that is properly done and where you see that the aromas and the flavors that each component is bringing to the final blend is in the right position, in the right location.
So the Wine Mojo is asking a bit more. Can we talk more about each component, or you want to keep it secret until we do the blend, or?
Yeah, I mean we can reveal. I think it doesn't hurt if you reveal, and yeah, I think it's a good idea, Wine Mojo. We're gonna reveal what's in this one. So this is a Touriga Nacional, 100% from Quinta da Trovisca, which is a vineyard that we have planted at around these vines are located about 400 meters above sea level. So they are not really on the in that area that you can see the river, but it's just behind. And this is it's a location that is relatively fresh, even in summertime. It has some slope, so there's no really accumulation of water. The water drains down the hill, but it's not. It's a bit windy. It handles better the extreme hot temperature that sometimes we suffer at summer, especially in the end of July, early August. Yeah, so this is Quinta Trovisca Touriga Nacional, 100%. Component number 2. Component number 2. So the component number 2 is a port that is coming from our iconic vineyard, Quinta Val de Godinho. This vineyard is located in the Fogadosa Valley. For those that don't really know precisely where this is, there's a train station that is called Fogadosa. It's I would say put it between Caixão da Valeira and Taylor's Quinta de Vargelas vineyard. This vineyard was planted in 1983 by my parents. We have a total of 20 hectares that are pretty much like 95, if not 98% are planted on terraces. And what's typical from that time, from the 70s and from the 80s, or at least the early 80s, it is a field blend. And that's still the traditional in the Douro. Unfortunately, we are seeing more and more of block plantations. But we do have this vineyard, these different vines all together in the same land. So we don't really have a block of Touriga Nacional or a block of Touriga Franca, a block of Sauzin. It's not about that. And You know that this is now the time when the color of the leaves is now changing. It's getting dry. Leaves eventually fall, but it's as we are in fall. But it's they get into different color patterns. You know, some vines are yellow, some others are red, others are still light green, like lemon almost. And it's beautiful to see where these field blends are located. You know, you get like a big pattern of colors throughout the hill. While you can also compare with other parcels that are, you know, a block of one variety in which the colors are much more homogeneous. So you can hear and you figure it out who's making what. You know, if it's a fill blend, if it's a block blend, and sometimes you can even guess what's in the block just by looking at the colors at this time of the year. So this is a Quinta Val de Agudinho, and being Quinta Val de Agudinho a fill blend, this is a 100% fill blend. You know, here we get a bit more of that influence of the lower altitude, higher temperatures, a bit more extreme, less freshness and less rain. Here we get more of the spicy character, that we feel in those vineyards that are under more hydro stress. It's probably more closed and brings you this cacao note, this chocolate note. And on the palate, you feel all those tannins working. They are there, they're intense, they are really ripened. But it's still elegant, you know, and that's I think it's a characteristic of this area more than the vineyard. It's probably the area. It's what the French call the terroir, the location in the end. It's the vines planted, the soil there, and maybe the fact that it's on the south bank facing north, it is a bit more protected from from that midday sun that sometimes burns as when we are out in the vineyards right in the middle of the summer. So component number two, it's Quinta Val de Agudinho, field blend, 100%. Any other question?
Not probably worth mentioning it was planted by your grandfather. So it's legacy that you keep on carrying.
This was actually planted by my parents.
Okay, so I made a mistake. I thought it was your grandfather.
Yeah, no, it was not my grandfather. It was the first big vineyard that my father planted. Actually, he was kind of it was hard for him to put all this land together. He bought from 7 different people, and it was almond trees and just like a forest area before. And then in 1983, decided to build there. It's like main what is not our iconic vineyard. Good. So component number three, and another glass. The component number three is coming from a vineyard further east of Agudinho, even more towards uh, the Douro Superior. It's not far from Porcinho. This is a vineyard that was planted by my grandfather. My grandfather from my mother's side, Joaquim, it's his name. And it's from the old vines, also a field blend that we have in Mosh. It is not irrigated, this vineyard, and the Godinho is also not irrigated. Actually, none of the 4 ports that we are using for the 2019 were in vines that were irrigated. So it's not with these ports that we're going to see the difference between irrigation and irrigation. I find it a bit more on the overripened flavors. You know, the spices are still there, but there's a note of freshness that I think Claudia, my sister, is always trying to preserve. That brings elegance, that brings also that touch that it's not really overripe and over powerful. And in the end, acidity is a very important thing for longevity. There is no possibility of having a port to age for many years that goes early to the bottle without a big chunk of acidity to make it tight and firm. Here we have the tannins, they're very present. They're giving us texture and that feel of mouth, that mouthfeel that is full, is complete. It is it's a component that in very extreme years you have to be very careful because the grapes can turn into raisin soon, and you need to do an early ripeness, an early harvest. But I think this can be interesting to our blend. I won't reveal the percentages yet, but definitely. Are you ready for the number 4? Component number 4. And need not a glass.
Well, Simon makes a comment, and maybe I can transform this into a question. How do you feel for you is the importance of blending to have a complete and complex wine in terms of vintage versus the single expression of a vineyard? Or what's your interest? How much fun do you have comparing both or enjoying both?
I think it's if you let me put it this way, it's similar like in the tonics, like a Quevedo or the indication of age. So in a single vineyard, we have more expression of the vineyard and less expression of the winemaker. While in our case, blending these 4 components, we are having more the expression of what my sister thought was, uh, having a positive impact in the blend. And in the end, it's a combination, of course, of the vineyard, because if the vineyard is not good, it's not, we will never make port, but also of the expression of the winemaker. And maybe this line of freshness that we see throughout the ports that we've been tasting, it's going to be present at the final blend. But I think it's in the end, with a you should get a more complete port when it is blended rather than if it's from a single vineyard. And we have made in the past ports from a single vineyard, but it's um, it's not like as complete as it could be. I'll put that way, Simon. I don't know if you agree with me or not. Please let me know if not, of course. And now the number 4. The number 4, it's again port from a higher altitude vineyard, and is coming from the organic parcels that we have at Quinta da Trovisca. In these organic um, parcels, we have a mix of Touriga Nacional, Touriga Franca, Tinta Roriz, and also Sauzão. And my sister is bringing it here. I think it's to complement the tannins and still give this floral note, floral touch to our final blend. You can see it almost, if it was a bit more austere, maybe it's the Sauzão also playing here, but you also have a floral note of the Touriga Nacional, or maybe the Touriga Franca, doesn't have to be the Touriga Nacional, but it's like the previous 2, also the result of a blend of grapes, but this time not in the field. We have 4 different parcels, one with each grape variety that I just mentioned. Touriga Nacional, Touriga Franca, Quinta Roriz, and Sauzão. That's a great question, Ben. So now how we put this number four? It's beyond purpleness, no?
I felt number four was darker than number four.
It's number one. Yeah, a bit more darker.
Down from the organic fostering a lot of color.
Yeah, yeah. This organic vineyard is don't ask me why, but it's probably that, and you know this too, Fred. It's probably that area in now all our vineyards that we have that always has a huge concentration of really inky colors, and I think that if the global warming keeps advancing as it is, and if this vineyard refines that 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 power that it now has, because it's a vineyard that only 15 years of age, probably, maybe yeah, around that. I think it's from 2005. It can make some amazing ports in the future as the vines get older and refine their quality. Good. Are you ready to make start making your blends? Have you started making your own blends? Do you have any suggestions for your own? Do you have any suggestions for what my sister may be using, or what you would like the blend to be? What's perfection for you? If you use these four ports, where is the right formula? Are you using them all? Maybe just two or three of them, or use them all, even if just a bit of one of those. Now that's the fun part, and that's where what I wanna see. You know, it's a joy for me to imagine you guys doing all these experiments at home, knowing that some of you are really big port lovers.
Should we give some tricks, some direction, or let people enjoy? Or...
You know, I think the bottles are not huge bottles. It's true. They are. You have enough for taste and to do also some experiments. Um, so try not to use all the bottle in your first blend because at some point you may need some more. What I would suggest when doing this blend is, you know, if you have something that you really like and something that you don't like, you can definitely use more of what you like, but maybe not to the extreme of like 90 or 100% or even above 75. I like to, I always see it this way. A blend should work like a great conversations among friends. If there is one guy that is dominating the conversation, or one guy that is shy and never says anything, the conversation doesn't get as good as it could be. If you have a rich conversation when everybody is talking and bringing inputs to the conversation, if you guys have a different political view, different sports team, different religion, then the conversation can be really complex and interesting. But if you all think about the same, if you all have the same views, same ideas, same thoughts, the conversation is going to be rich because we know how everyone is thinking. So in the blending, we try to get something good from each one of the pots, something good from something that can improve us the final blend that we didn't have if you were using only one or two pots that we like the most. Sometimes we don't really have to love them all, but the fact, and it's like in a team, in a team of also a working team. We need players to do different jobs, and that's what we need for the ports. So I think we have darker colors in all of them. The colors are okay. We shouldn't be panicking about having a white color because that's not going to happen. Whatever the percentages are. But think about this relation of floral fruit versus spicy and overripened. I see the number one and number four as being our elegant, more fresher, approachable ports, while especially number three and a little bit number two, a bit more overripened, a bit more mature, a bit on the spicier side. And in terms of the tannins, and I think it could be interesting at this point to taste our final blend. You'll see that the tannins are actually working together to build layers of flavors, layers of you know of cool things, of nice things, of mouthfeel, and that's how the team should work together to make it more complex. Let's go to the number five. You probably have them tasted number five at home, or
You
what's
can
the
taste as
final
you
blend?
blend as well to see, hey, how is this affecting my blend? As you build it, you can taste it.
So, do you guys have already any preference for the percentages? In the final blend, we get that floral, but without being, you know, too light. We get that fruit note that you know, like maybe red currant, maybe some lavender, a bit of fennel. You have the chocolate again there. But on the palate, we feel the tannins. It's really firm, really succinct. It it starts, medium and grows into the as you sip it, as you swallow it. I find it very nice. So here we have Ben, 51, 16 point half of all the others. It's not 100%, but it's okay. It's almost there. Ben. Simon. Wow, that was a good one, Simon. That was a very good one. 5-1, 42. My blend.
And please let us know if you prefer yours to Claudia.
Yeah.
We might accept some CVs.
She will be happy, I'm sure. Have some people that think and put some thought into this. It's not only we I mean, we do many of these blending sessions in our lab throughout the year to understand if you're going to the right direction, and we change our blend. You may start in in November last year thinking of going into a direction, and then another winter comes, more of the color precipitates, and some of the wines get more open, more expressive, and others may get still a bit closed. So it's normal to change. The wine mojo is honest though. He prefers bodies. Interesting, Edward. Nice point as well. Well, I have to tell you that the one that is closest to the real blend that we have in our 2019 vintage port is Simon. It's not quite there, but he's very close. Do you know the final blend, Fred?
I saw the number.
Did you? Okay.
It's funny, yesterday I did my experiments and I did blend and I had some clients at the lodge and I gave them the chance to try as well.
And did you?
And in the end, they were like, well, yeah, it's not, blending is an art. And you realize it. It's like when you blend 20% yellow with 80% blue, you know which kind of green you're going to get. But when you blend wine like this, it's really trial and error and understanding the vineyard over and over again through that generation that you're passing the knowledge from your grandfather to your father to your sister.
Yeah. It happens to us sometimes that You know, you taste 4 or 5 ports and to make a blend, looking for with the aim of blending them. And you say, oh, this number 3 is not really nice. So, you know, it's close, it's not expressive, or it's too light, or it's too tannic, whatever. But then it's, you know, my sister always says, well, let me taste with a bit of that because, you know, it sometimes it changes. And and I remember like a couple of weeks ago that we were tasting some white port from uh, from the past harvest to start, you know, combining them and what goes into stainless tank, what goes into the wood, the oak beans, and I would discard one of those, but Claudia decided to you know to blend it. Said no, I'm going to use 10% of this in this experiment. And at the end, I was tasting and said, "Wow, this is much better with this 10% of the port that I would never use than just the other three separate." So you know, it's like in the end, salt and pepper, a bit of you know, a bit of salt in the food always makes it good. No, probably not, Simon. I don't think it would change your thoughts. It's you. To be honest with you, you're very close, and I think it's just you know luck that if you would nail it exactly. But taste it. You of course taste it and let me know or let us know here what if you would change your percentages or not. And anyone else? Anyone else that wants to share the percentages? Phil, I didn't see yours, Phil. So question from Phil. When Claudia starts blending a new vintage port, how much does she involve other people to narrow a wide range of options? Or is it very much a solo expert only task? Yeah, well, what she typically does is she does a lot on solo, but then she also like to hear the opinion of Teresa, which is the winemaker that does the Douro wines, myself, and sometimes if Fredas is around, he's also asked to participate. So it's not that unless we are she's very convinced and very sure about what the percentages. We our inputs are also considered, of course, because I mean, she has review. She made the ports since the you know she picked the grapes from the different parcels. You know, narrow down the selection, the quality of the grapes, decide which kind of fermentation that you're going to have. But in the end, you know, the blending can be something that we have different views and a bit of a different opinion. And as a good teamwork, sometimes we improve the final blend just because we have a good discussion. Okay, 40, 20, 20, 20, 20. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not, your first was 50. So we reduce the number one and we increase the number, all the others. Yeah, you're getting a bit closer, but there is one that has a very small percentage. That's a hint. Yeah, that's a hint. There is one of those that has uh, very small percentage. Claudia just really use it as a salt and pepper. Oh, cool, Phil. Thank you for joining me. Okay, so Fred, are we ready to reveal?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's do it. So, bum, bum, bum. Here is paper. Number one, 32%. Number two, 32%. Number three, 32%. And 4% from number four. So this organic parcel is just really the salt on the top or the, I don't know, the cherry on top of the cake. It depends on how we put it. Yeah, it's in the end we have about 60, about two-thirds is coming from vineyards that located at lower altitude, while we have almost like one-third, a bit more than one-third, that is from a vineyard located at higher altitude. So that's a relation of temperature. In theory, it would also make sense to me. It was a dry year. We had some lack of water at some point in the soil, but why not to compensate that with a vineyard that is located at higher altitude and bring some more of the floral, the fresh fruit notes forward, and at the same time give it more, probably more uh, tannins, another dimension of tannins that in the end build up as a great base for a vintage port to mature for many years. These are my thoughts. So you're getting towards the end. It's wow, this 50 minutes just.
I'd like to talk a little bit about, you have 4 tanks of high quality ruby port. Some were selected for blending into the vintage. What do you do with what you don't select for the vintage? What are the possibilities and what can we expect from that?
So we are going to make 6,600 bottles of vintage port from 2019. And of some of these components, especially the organic from Pravishka, we have more of it left. What do you use those, what I could say, leftovers for? Crusted. It's something that we have had a lot of fun with it, with the crusted. And you guys are kind of also supporting that as the sales of, we sell out every single crusted quite like a few months after we put it to the market. And the crusted is that kind of port that brings me to what my grandfather João would have in his cellar, a bit more austere, more rustic. That character of the sitting on the lease for a long period of time. It's definitely a port that we also put a lot of attention, and also to the late bottle vintages. It's always great, or it's much easier to make nice late bottle vintage when you have some components that are really outstanding. So of course, that we cannot have all our ports as a extreme high quality, super high quality. Sometimes it happens that vineyards are younger, or this time the grapes just got grazing earlier, or varieties that are fresher and they are there to be ready to drink younger, being that the Tinta Francisca or the Tinta Barroca. So it's the combination that makes the combination of grapes that in the end end up with a great LBV. And LBV is something important for us. And something that I think we are a bit different from other producers is the fact that Claudia loves to save the best ones. Those that know Claudia know she's very happy to share with you any port from the cellar, but to sell it's something else. And she loves to save those ports that we use for the vintage port to collators, which also explains why our collators are so dark and take so long to get ripened and ready to into those amber or just being brick tawny colors and taste. So we use a lot of that to our collators as well. And in the end, I mean, it's not that much quantity that we have, so we just goes to all these different components and different ports I'd like to make.
Do we also talk about what we can expect from the next tasting experience?
Yes.
This a teaser.
Yeah. The next tasting experience in a few weeks. Well, that's gonna be something new to me and to Claudia and to everyone here at Quevedo is the fact that we decided to bottle or to put in bottle what 7 years ago was put in the demijohn. So we made two garrafeiras from 2000 and from 1994. Those have been in oak beans for embalseiros and tonéis until 2013 or 2014, if I'm not wrong. And in a certain day, Roy Hirsch came to visit us, and we decided to open those balseiros and put all that port in demijohns. And he was like the day he was here on day zero, and then we waited for 7 years. And last year, with the help, with inspiration, with the suggestions, the thoughts of Alex Bridgman, of Tony Carter, and also with Fred that is here with me, we came up with uh, what we call a prestige advent calendar, which we had so much fun doing last year that we said, okay, so for next year, we're going to bring different things. And many of the ones are different. And in that prestige advent calendar, we have two garrafeiras. And those two garrafeiras, the 94 and the 2000, were also bottled to another tasted on with Oscar, like the tasting experience that vintage wine and port is offering. And on the next one, we are going to taste side by side 1994 Garrafeira, 1994 Colheita, and 2000 Garrafeira and 2000 Colheita. It's going to be new, so maybe I will have some. I will need more of your input, as this is something very, very new to me. Of course, that I have tasted Newport's Garrafeira before, but that's seven, I think, if I'm not wrong, and that's not that no one else is making it. So it's we are kind of tasting definitely in charter territory for us here at Quevedo, and well, we will do this together. We will have fun. I know that this time, I mean, the, the 2000 and the 94 Garrafeiras are only available on the 90% so we will not be able to purchase the full 75s, at least at this moment, maybe in several years we will. We did not bottle any of Garrafeira to sell when we opened the demijohns for the 90 CLs. So they are only available through Vintage Wine and Port, and I hope that you join us. This being said, thank you all for being here. You have been great supporters of these events. They just happen because of you, because you have been on the other side. For those that are tasting it tomorrow, like Phil, or in the next few days, you can always drop us your suggestion for the best blend. And otherwise, I hope to see you soon here in Porto in our tasting room in the Douro. And if that's not possible, then on the other side. Fred.